So you rolled up a new character, and your character has a strange thing written on the adventurer's papers. What in Pandora's box is an AC? And why is it a 12? How do I use this strange mechanism? Oh, look! And you see HP, and 30 feet as well. Don't distress. This lesson will be on calculating and understanding these concepts. So let us first look at HP. Well, what is HP? HP is your health, or rather your hit points. It is a number that is representative of your character's durability, how much punishment that they can take, and their combat endurance. It is meant to represent not only the actual physical punishment you can take, but also serves to abstractly represent the concepts of getting combat weary, winded from a blow, staggered, etc. An adventurer's health is almost exclusively calculated from their class and their constitution score. Every class has what we call a hit dice, which comes in varying sizes from a d6 to a d12. And these hit dice are used to determine your maximum HP. Just a quick side note. Hit dice are used for some other mechanics in game. However, we'll be only concentrating specifically on how they are used in generating our maximum health scores. The basic calculation at level 1 is to have the maximum amount that your hit dice can be and add your constitution modifier to it. And this will be your base maximum health at level 1. What exactly does that mean? Well, let's explore that through an example. If we have a fighter with a constitution of 16 at level 1, and if we look at the fighter's hit die, which is a d10, we maximize that d10, which gives us a 10. Then we add our constitution modifier on top of that. So 10 plus 3, giving ourselves a total health at level 1 of 13. But what if we were playing a wizard with an 8 constitution? Then we would have to use the wizard's hit dice, and the maximum of the wizard's hit dice of a d6 is 6. And we add our modifier, which in this case is a negative modifier, a -1, meaning we will have a total of 5 HP at level 1. Ouch! Your HP at levels after level 1 is calculated by rolling your hit dice and adding a constitution modifier to it. In some cases, the average roll of the hit dice is used instead. So for example, we look back at our fighter with 16 constitution. We have reached level 2. So we roll our d10. And let's say we get an 8. We then add our 3 from our constitution modifier and get a total of 11. We take this 11 and add it back onto our original HP at level 1, which was a 13. So 11 plus 13, meaning our HP at level 2 is a total of 24. Nice. This is actually pretty decent. Conversely, instead of rolling, we could have taken the average instead. If we forego the roll of the d10 in favor of using the average, we end up using a 6 instead of an 8, because 6 is the average of a d10. Rolling the dice can potentially be much better than using the average, but also potentially much worse. For example, if we had rolled a 1, our health would have been significantly lower. There are also some variants and homebrew rules, and so it is up to you to discuss with your DM what method of HP generation you are using at your table. AC. AC is tied directly to another mechanic in D&D known as DC, or rather, difficulty class. This is a numerical value that is applied against any check to gauge how difficult it is to succeed at whatever the check is trying to accomplish. In the case of AC or Armour Class, it sets the DC for which the enemy needs to surpass so that they can hit you. In other words, it provides a numerical value that the creature must either match or exceed on their attack roll to be able to decrease your HP. The AC of a creature is determined by a few things, such as what kind of armor they are wearing, if they have any natural armor, such as innate hide or scales, or if they have some sort of other character feature, such as a class feature or magic, which is affecting their armor class. So for example, if we have a fighter armored in standard plate armor, his armor class will be 18. This means that whenever an enemy wants to damage our character, they will need to match 18 or get higher than that on their attack roll. There are different kinds of armor, starting from unarmored up to heavy armor. A character wearing no armor, in general, will have an armor class of 10 plus the dexterity modifier. Now, it is important to note that the monk and barbarian do have their own calculations for unarmored defense, but we will look into this more when we do deep dives into those classes specifically. Light armor functions in a similar way. Each piece of light armor has their own base armor class, which usually varies between 11 and 12. This calculation is accomplished by having their base armor class plus your dexterity modifier. Medium armor is calculated by their base armor class plus a dexterity modifier to a maximum of +2. This one can be a bit confusing, so let's take a look at it specifically for a moment. Let's say that we have a character in half-plate armor, which has a base armor class of 15, and we are playing a character with an 18 in dexterity. Even though we have a dexterity modifier of +4, we are limited to adding only a +2 to our armor calculation. In this case, for a maximum of 17. And finally, that brings us to heavy armor, which is calculated by just using its base amount. It is important to note that some heavy armors require a base strength requirement to wear. If you lack this requirement, you will suffer a movement penalty of -10 feet. In other words, you will move 10 feet slower in combat. And with that, we get brought to movement speed. A character's movement speed is the speed at which a character can move in the space of a round without dashing. A round is usually broken up into 6 seconds, and on a standard gridded map, each square is representative of 5 feet by 5 feet. In other words, it is representative of how many squares a character is able to traverse in the span of 6 seconds. This base movement speed represents their land movement speed, as some characters and creatures have additional movement types, such as flying speed, climbing speed, and swimming speed. For most characters, movement speed will be gained from their race, at least at level 1. There are ways to learn and attain other kinds of movement speeds, as well as increasing the one that you have. Most characters will start their careers off with a speed of 30 feet. And on a standard grid, this equates to being able to traverse 6 squares on the board every round. And that brings us to the end of this lesson. We thank you for your time, and we hope that you've learned something. We have included a Google Doc in the lesson description with some things to reference in-game, to make the process just a little bit easier. If you have any questions regarding the lessons or anything else, please do leave a comment below. If you enjoyed this lesson, please feel free to show others and give it a like. And if you wish to enroll in the syllabus, please press that subscribe button. Once again, we thank you, and until our next lesson, fare thee well.